we're assuming that you've made the menu and you've got it as an asset and you've made some boards with that menu and they're actually linked up already, so mine are, so let's hope you're up to there. So how do we make a drop down menu? Start with your text tool and just type, maybe call it with the type tool, type drop down, just menu options, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be for something like menu options, and I've made the type quite big. Now, yeah, I've got a little bit bigger. And the first thing you're going to want to do with this box, which now has the type in it, is to actually control click, or right click, or look for the option over here. So either way, what you're after doing is add an auto layout. The shortcut is Shift A, so you could just learn that. You're going to use this a lot. So we're adding an auto layout, and we should be doing that on all kinds of boxes, and you'll see why in a minute. And you can see now it's called it a frame. So auto layout is more than just a frame. So when I go, and let me put a little bit of colour around in this frame now. So if I go down to fill, I'll be able to fill that frame with a little bit of a background colour, just so you can see it a bit more clearly. Might actually go grey, yeah, it's because we're putting it on that background. And you can see it's a bit awkward the way it is, hasn't got much padding. So we can go and sort out the padding, make it a bit bigger, so we can play around with that. And I've got the position centered. So let's add a little bit more padding, maybe 20 all the way around. And that's going to govern the space. See how it's governing the space around it? So it's got a nice even space. And if I wanted to put a little bit of a curve on the edge of the box, curved edges, I could do that as well. So you can see now I've got something that looks maybe a bit more like a button. So what I want to do now is go and get a little caret or chevron to put in there for a down arrow. So if I go to that actions button down there and go to plugins and widgets, and you can see in actions you can get auto layout from there as well. But we want to go to plugins and widgets, and I'm going to an icon library called Iconify, and I've already searched it, but it's actually called a caret, like that. Some people call them chevrons, and just select one that you want to use, drag it onto the board. It'll probably be quite tiny like that one is, so you'll need to drag it up a bit and just resize that to the size you want it. Okay, so that's looking more like the size I might need it. It's probably a bit big, but let's just copy that and bring it over here. And I want to actually switch it around because it's going to go down. So just hold your shift key down. Now with the auto layout, what we should see is that we can throw that caret in there and it should push that aside. So I haven't quite got that selected. So maybe I've lost my auto layout. Let's just make sure it's actually got the auto layout on there. No, it should have it. So what should happen is we drag it next to it and it should just accommodate it. So I might have to drag this out just a little bit. So you can probably see there's a little bar in there, and we should be able to just make that sit in there with the auto layout on. It should accommodate it quite nicely. Why is that not behaving? Try it again. That should do it. Doesn't seem to be behaving like an auto layout though. So that's weird. See how it's not moving with it? So I might need to copy that and then Yes, I think what I need to do there is just make sure I'm holding the text tool down. So I'm actually getting it there, and then when I go and get the chevron, it should see, it knows where to go there, drop it in. Now it should behave. This is the whole reason for the auto layout. So you did need to switch to the text tool, and it should resize. And what's making it behave centered there is the settings that you've got for the auto layout. So I've set it on centered, and that's why it's behaving like that. So we've got options for that. So you see there it is on centered, the alignment. So once you've done that, it's going to just stick to the middle there, no matter what I do, and no matter how big I make it, it's going to stick to that. So I may have made a little bit too big in terms of font size, being a bit exaggerated. So I might need to just reduce that down a bit so it's not quite so silly. And then you'll see I can take the whole thing down like so, and I can still, if I double click, I can still edit that, or I can grab the outsides of it, I can resize the whole thing. But because it's pasted in there, it's behaving how the auto layout should, so we can not have to have these things move separately around. So once you've set that up, that's going to be the actual menu. So that'll be the thing we see on the page. Now we have to go and create our drop-down bits, and we can just copy that and call it drop-down options. So these are going to be the little different foods, for example. So I've said, what have I said? I've already set up eggs and hamburgers. So I'm just going to make it simple and just do eggs. And I probably don't need that there anymore. But it'll keep it the same size because I've copied it. And my other one, I'll just copy that one down and I'll call that hamburgers. And notice how the text, because of that auto layout, stays in the same place. Now I want to make my drop down items look a little different. So I just want to change their colour a little bit so they look a little bit more differentiated from our top menu, just to make it easy to see what we're doing. Okay, so something like that. Now these two are now your drop-down items. So they're going to end up, you really want to frame them as one thing. So you can move them up a little closer if you want so that they stick together, and then drag over them, select them both. I would delete that chevron so it doesn't annoy you. So these two want to be their own frame. So again, if you drag over and select them, you should be able to frame that selection. So it's already framed. Yeah, that should be okay. And I think what we need to do at this point is add our auto layout to both of these. So we stick them together and drag over those items. Oh no, these two should actually be grouped together. So why don't I get, yeah, here we go. So they should really be their own frame. So here we go, frame selection. So that's better. So we really need to do that step so that the drop down options are their own group like that. So that's, I've selected both and said frame selection again. So now it should be possible to put them together and drag over all of those and give them, select both and add an auto layout. So this little symbol over here, use auto layout or Shift A. They've given you lots of ways to access it. So you can see now that's framed these things together. And then the next step, and I might rename that accordion, because that's kind of how it's going to behave, like a little accordion. So just name it so that you know exactly what it is. So it's my menu accordion. That's what I'm going to call it. And the next step is to make a component of that. So that's this little icon here, create component. Again, if you don't remember where things are, just control click on the object. So have it selected, control click, and you should see that you can create the component through there again. Yeah, so either through that menu there or through the little chevron. Now we do need to go back up here and say add variant. So we've got 2 lots of it sitting there. Now we're going to make this top one, the frame, this one, the one that sits closed. We're going to close this version. So you have a little thing down here called clip content. So if you go back up there, you'll be able to clip that content once you've clicked that box. So this now becomes your closed state, and this now becomes your open state. So that's what we're aiming to do. Now we've got to do a little bit of prototyping between these two. So now you can switch to your prototyping tools and click on it and say, okay, when we actually click on that, it's going to open that. So on click, change to variant 2, and you could rename that, with a if you name it, it might be a bit easier for you, but it's just variant 2, that refers to that. And then when that's done, you're going to go back the other way. So once we click off that, it's going to change back to the default, which is this one with the closed box. So now that's set up, you should, back in here in your assets, so you've got file where you can see your layers if you get confused at all, and you can rename things in here as well. So you can, instead of having these defaults that it gets very confusing, you can actually go into this file area, see the layers and rename things as you go. So in assets now, not only do I have my reusable menu that I created the first time, but I now have this menu options, which should already have these pre-built drop-down functions. So on my home page, I'm now going to place my menu options, and it's a little bit big, but I can hopefully size it down a bit. Might have made it a little too wide. There it is. And let's just test it and see if it's actually working for us. Menu options, I'm making sure I've got that home screen selected, and then go play it. And let's just see if it worked. Yes, it's worked. There it is. And I probably need to have resized those to fit that. So I might have to go back and adjust my sizes in the original. But you can see the basic things working. Now, a lot of you will want to actually have another action so that when it drops down, you can click on that eggs or hamburgers and go to that page. So that's kind of the next step along. So once you've got the whole thing working, and so here I can probably go back and just get my sizing for the whole thing a little bit adjusted. I did make it a little bit big, so probably have to go back a step and resize it. I won't do that now, but you can see there's a bit of a mismatch on the page because I've made it a bit big. But anyway, it is working. So one other thing we can do in this is put some preset navigation on it. So we actually do want that to go to our eggs page over here. So I'll zoom out so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So make sure you got the correct one and send that off to the eggs page. And the hamburger one, I'm going to send that off to the hamburger page. Now with a bit of luck, that is now going to have that animation all built into that. And let's kind of go and just see if that actually works for us now. So I'm just going to play that. It's going to refresh menu options and we go to eggs, and yes, it does. And I do have this wired up to go back. No, I don't. Okay, so I can't get back, but I'll fix that. So once I'm on my egg page, for example, I want to make sure that home button, if I click on it, actually takes me back to the home screen, back over here. Yep, so navigate to home, that seems to be right. And then if I want to go to the hamburger page, let's just make sure that icon is taking me back to, it appears to be working. Let's just test it. So let's go home and test the prototype again. We got a drop down, and can we go to hamburgers? Yes, we're going to hamburgers. Can we go home? Yes, we can. Can we go to eggs? Yes, we can. Can we go home? Yes, we can. Okay, so that'll do for the absolute basic kind of drop down menu. You can see it's quite neat though. And you know, some of you might have just information about an item. You might want to use this technique. That's absolutely fine. All right, hopefully that helps a little bit.